let's start. Om Sadashivasamarampham Shankaracharyamadhyamam Asmadacharyaparyantam Vande Guru Paramparam. So any questions, clarification on what we have done up to now? I think we completed the 68th verse last time, right? Hello? You remember what we did last time? Huh?
70.
You did 70 also. Okay. Yes. The heart of a wise person, Apuryamanam Machana Pratishtam, right?
Yes, after which you were discussing about Bhishma.
Yeah. So any questions, clarifications on it, or is it fine? We can go ahead. Is there any questions? Shoot now. Now is the time to ask. Any questions? Okay. The silence, I will assume that there are no questions. Okay. All right.
How would, Swami, I have one question. How
Yeah.
would failure be considered by a wise person?
One second. Your voice is not being very clear. I thought it would be, but it is not. Give me a minute. Okay, what is the question?
How would a wise person view failure?
Can you speak up a bit, please?
How would a wise person consider failure?
Consider failure.
Yes.
What do you mean failure?
Failure in terms of, any target which you set to achieve,
Okay.
which
How would a karma yogi consider failure?
yes.
We have seen karma yoga in chapter 2, right? So how would a karma yogi consider failure? The one who asked the question, I want him to respond. How would a karma yogi consider failure? Or anybody else can respond. How would a karma yogi consider failure? Exactly, he will respond to it. He will accept the situation. Yep. You win some, you lose some. Accept the situation. Do what you can. Go ahead in life. Why should the wise person be any less when he is dealing with the world? In fact, he is one step more than the karma yogi. One step more than the karma yogi. The karma yogi has to grow a lot in life. The wise person doesn't have to. He's already been there, done that. Therefore, if the karma yogi can accept the situation, the wise person will accept the situation happily. It's okay. Not meant to be. Not meant to be. Is it worthy of another effort? Okay, let's do something about it. Not worthy? Okay. Apuryamanam Achala Pratishtam. Remember the last verse. Whether he is successful, failure, that doesn't make a difference. He is Ananda Swarupa. Ananda can go through success, Ananda can go through failure, Ananda can go through happy situations, Ananda can go through unhappy situations. You are always Ananda.
Okay.
Yeah. You think everything a wise person does is successful? Of course not. Lot of things a wise person do may not be successful. So what's the big deal about it? Happens. That will depend upon his past karma. That will depend upon the people's karma, because he rarely does things for himself. He does things for people at large. Let us say here the wise person decided, chalo, let me create some teachers for the next generation. My generation, I am there. Maybe 20 years younger also I can teach. But what about their children? Let us put up an ashram so that we can teach and create teachers for the next generation. It doesn't work out. It doesn't work out. Not meant to be. That's all. No big deal. You'll still teach, and because of that, one or two people may still come up as teachers. There was a very interesting question that someone typed for me, saying that because he sees the same in all, will he be naturally a vegetarian? Okay, the question was, will the wise person naturally be a vegetarian? If he is in India, probably he will be a vegetarian. If he is in China, will he naturally be a vegetarian? I don't know. Probably not. What if he is an Eskimo? 6 months there is no food available other than fish and seal. What do you do then? Ahimsa is natural for the wise person. Yes. Ahimsa is natural. But remember, don't take that ahimsa as absolute. Don't take it as absolute. Yeah. Yeah. So it is natural for most people who are students of Vedanta at some time in their life to say, okay, for the sake of my tongue, I will not kill, and therefore become predominantly vegetarian. Predominantly. Unless they are traveling for work abroad, things like that. Sometimes it may happen. Predominantly. Yeah. So that much is there. But otherwise, but not necessarily, like if you, as I said, if you are living in Eskimo land, as an Eskimo, about your advice, you gain this knowledge from somewhere, from someone, and 6 months you are living under the snow. Okay. No food is available other than fish, seals. What do you do? Yeah?
Or request everybody to mute because the disturbance.
Any questions, or is it clear? Can I assume it's all clear and to go ahead, or what?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
Swamiji. Yes.
Okay. Interesting. Questions are always interesting, okay? Yeah. Okay, so 70th verse we did like now. Now he is drawing a very beautiful pen picture in a few strokes of how a wise person is. Vihaya kamanya sarvan puman sharati nispruha nirmamo nirahankaraha sashantim madhigacchati. Sashantim madhigacchati. This person gains that absolute peace. Who is that person? What she says. Sarvan kaman vihaya. Sarvan kamani vihaya. Giving up all kamas. Growing out of all kama. Puman sharati nispraha. The person is moving about. Untouched by anything. Nispraha. Nirmamaha nirahankaraha. He doesn't take the finite self. The ahankara, the conceptual self which is necessary for functioning as himself. It's just a dress that you are wearing. Nirmamaha, nothing belongs to me. I am everything, but nothing belongs to me. Nirmamo nirahankara. Such a person, shanti madhigacchati. This is what all of you can be. Nispraha, untouched by anything. You're moving around in your family life. Moving around, children, relatives, partners, everything. All happen. Nirmamaha, nirahankaraha. You no more take yourself as a finite self. That's the dress you are wearing for functioning in the world. Nirmamaha, nothing belongs to you. You are everything. And if you are everything, nothing is yours. Yeah, for functional purposes, you have a few things. You take care of a few things. That's purely functional in nature. That's it. Therefore, nirmamaha nirahankara. Sa shantim adhigacchati. He knows what the absolute peace is about. This is what all of us can be. Okay? Simple. Meaning wise, it's very simple. We have seen all that before. Okay. As a concluding verse, a very beautiful verse. Esha bhrami sthiti partha nainam prapya vimukhyati stitvapi asyam antakalepi brahma nirvanam rachyati. Esha bhrami sthiti partha. Hey partha, this is called bhrami sthiti. The sthiti, the state of Brahman, of being Brahman, of recognizing I am Brahman. Okay. Bhrami sthiti partha. Nainam prapya vimukhyati. After having gained this, you are no more under the delusion of life. You are no more under the delusion of samsara. You experience the things, but you are not under the delusion of it anymore. Sthitva asyam antakalepi. Even if you are rooted in this at the end of your life, Brahma nirvanam rachyati. The nirvanam that is known as Brahman, rachyati prapnoti. He gains. Gains meaning is already there with you, but you are recognized it. Antakalepi. Then what to talk about someone who has gained it before Antakalam? In your 30s, in your 40s, in your 50s, if you gain it, wow, you have this remaining life to enjoy that freedom. You have the remaining life to enjoy that freedom. And he makes a very beautiful statement. Once gained, it is never lost. Okay. Enam prapya na enam prapya vimukhyati. Enam prapya na vimukhyati. That's the order. Enam prapya, gaining this knowledge, na vimukhyati. Swamiji, what will happen? See, when I was in school, I studied Sanskrit. Now I don't remember anything. Can it not happen? Not if you are rooted in this knowledge. Why? Sanskrit is dependent on details. The root, the meaning, the application of the laws, the principles, that. So many things are there. This is you. Do you know yourself? Yeah. Are you out of your mind at any time? No. Then you will always have. Is the self made up of details? No. You may forget a couple of Gita verses. Like there are some texts which I have not taught for 20 years. What to do? Not yet got a student to teach them. So, a couple of those books are right here. I was going through them again. But let us say 20 years I have not touched this book. I may not remember all the verses. That's okay. But do you remember your Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahman? That is very clear. Never goes out of sight, out of mind. Forget remembering. Let us say this wise person got into an accident and he suffers amnesia. He can't remember his name. He can't remember why he is wearing this dress. He can't remember where he lives. He doesn't remember who his guru was. He doesn't remember whether he was married or he has children or what. Nothing he remembers. Complete wipeout. Will he have this knowledge or will he not have this knowledge? If he has been rooted in this knowledge before, there is no way he will not have this knowledge. Why? What is the first thought that comes up in your mind? I. And that I, for all of us, there is ignorance about the I. Because there is ignorance of the I, you will take the body, mind, etc. and memory-based personality. For this wise person who is suffering from amnesia, I comes up in the mind, what am I? Consciousness, limitlessness. Memory-based personality is forgotten. Before the wise person remembered, and he knew I am pure consciousness, therefore that is not out of sight. Plus the memory-based personality which he wears as a dress is also there. Yes, I am so and so. I am supposed to be a traditional teacher of Vedanta. That's the role I am playing in life, major role. Some other small roles here and there I do, but major, this is what I am. He remembers it. Now what? Now he forgets all that. What am I? Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahman. What else? I don't know. Swamiji, can you teach? What do you want to know? With the truth that you know. Yes, sit down, I'll teach. I'll explain as I know. In fact, if you look at the Mahabharata and things like that, there were stories about wise people behaving like a madman, etc. Those are probably cases like this, where they had some amnesia, they forgot their personality. Okay? They forgot their personality. But the truth they remembered. Because really speaking, the truth is not based on your memory. The truth is based on the I. I is not something you have to remember. What you are remembering, because there is personality which is memory based. All that you have undergone has created a personality, memory. Whereas I am consciousness is not memory, it is direct perception moment to moment. Directly seen by you, seen by the wise person. Not an object of perception, but directly seen by the wise person, moment to moment. That's it. Therefore, even in amnesia, if the person has been rooted in this knowledge will not go. In fact, in amnesia also, certain things you don't forget. You don't forget the language that you are most comfortable in. The language that comes natural to you. For most people, it is mother tongue. For most of us who are English educated right from childhood and have spoken in English in homes, probably it will be English. So, the language that you are most comfortable in, you will not forget. You are male or female, you will not forget. Because that's also not memory based. It's directly evident to you. So like that, a few things will remain with you. Similarly, this knowledge also will remember with you. Will remain with you. Whatever is not memory based will remain with you. I am pure consciousness. Even under amnesia, that will not be forgotten. There's an interesting question here. Does learning this knowledge in English put you at a disadvantage? No. After all, you need some language to learn, isn't it? You need some language to learn. Yes, all the texts are in Sanskrit because that's Deva Bhasha. It was revealed in this language. Not only that, there was a time when the spoken language by everyone in India was Sanskrit. Sanskrit was the spoken language. Language of India was Sanskrit once upon a time. Okay. It is Sanskrit interacting with local dialects, etc., that created other languages. That's why in every language you will find Sanskrit words. Therefore, Sanskrit was the original language of this country. It is older. I know there will be enough people here who will say, no, Tamil is equally old. And in the pure work, which is considered as pure Tamil work, Tirukkural, I will show you lot of Sanskrit words in Tirukkural. Okay. Therefore, Sanskrit was the original language. I am also from the south, so I also am very proud of what we South Indians do. But this, let us accept it as a fact. There was no south and north separate as far as Sanskrit was concerned. Sanskrit was all over. So therefore, all this was in Sanskrit. Therefore, knowing Sanskrit is definitely gives you an advantage. Why? Because you can go through the source books. When you can go through the source book, language definitely will give you an advantage. If you have to be a teacher, you better know Sanskrit. Yeah, definitely. I can't imagine a Vedanta teacher not knowing Sanskrit. Because then he is going to rely on translations all the time, and some of the translations are pathetic. How is he going to explain that? The translations are downright mistaken. Yeah. Therefore, how is he going to explain that? Therefore, as a teacher, you definitely need to know Sanskrit. If you say I am a Vedanta teacher but I don't know Sanskrit, I'll doubt your understanding of Vedanta as well. Your understanding of Vedanta also is under question. As a student, it is good to have Sanskrit. If you want to have some Sanskrit with you, is very good. Why? Because if a time comes, we have just started the Gita, okay, second chapter. We are towards the end of the second chapter. But if there is a time when you are going to study the Bhashyas, the commentaries of Shankara on the Upanishads, the Brahma Sutras, etc., then knowing Sanskrit is definitely a help. For I don't know how many students in this class will want to come up to there. In my mind, when I start teaching you all, the vision is there. That this class, many in this class can go up to there. I know the potential of my students. I know that many here can go up to there. Therefore, it's good to pick up some Sanskrit. Definitely. Is it absolutely a must if you want moksha for yourself? No. You can manage with English. If you want moksha for yourself, you don't want to be a teacher, etc., but just get it for yourself, then definitely you can manage in English, and there is no reason why you cannot gain moksha by studying in English. Yeah. Because after all, as I said, it's a language. A language is meant to communicate. If the teacher can effectively communicate the truth to you in English, then you got it. That's enough. Okay. Therefore, Esha Brahmi Sthiti Partha Nainam Prapya Vimukhyati Tittvamasyam Antakalepi Brahma Nirvanam Rachati. The Nirvana that is known as Brahman. Okay. Because by Nirvana in modern time, people say a lot of things. Okay. This is recognizing yourself as Brahman, the limitless. I am that limitless consciousness. That Brahma Nirvanam Rachati, he gains. Okay. Now, as I said earlier, gain is of two types. Because this term will be often used in the Gita. To prapnoti, richati, etc. He gains, he reaches, etc. Two types of gains. One is simple, apraptasya praptihi. What you don't have now with you, you are gaining. Like the wealth that you don't have with you now, you are doing some business, etc., and gaining that wealth. The job that you don't have, you are going and gaining it. The partner that you don't have in life, you are looking at various possibilities, gaining that. All this is apraptasya prapti. What you don't have, you are gaining it. Then there is something known as praptasya praptihi. Praptasya praptihi. I'll come to that question. Praptasya praptihi. What is praptasya praptihi? Gaining what you already have. Where is my pen here? Normally I keep it here. Where is my pen gone? Ah, yes, it is here. I recognize that the pen is there in my own pocket. I thought I didn't have it and I was looking for it. I found that I already have it. Okay? I found that I already have it. This is called praptasya praptihi. Gaining what you already have. Gaining what you already have. It's already there with you. Already there. Praptasya prapti is only by knowledge. Why? I have to recognize that the pen that I am seeking is already with me. I am only looking for it, thinking it is away from me, but it is not actually away from me. It is right there with me here in my hand. I kept it in my pocket and forgotten about it. Praptasya praptihi. Apraptasya praptihi depends upon action. Why? You have to go out, do a lot of things to get it. That money you have to earn. The partner you have to find. So, the house that you don't have now, you have to do a lot of house hunting. So, praptasya prapti depends upon karma, action. Apraptasya prapti depends upon action. Praptasya prapti depends only on knowledge, recognition. Therefore, knowledge is important because you are already the all-pervading consciousness. That limitless consciousness is what you are, but because you are ignorant of it, you are searching for it. Therefore, here, what is necessary is knowledge. Then somebody asked the question, what does rooted in this knowledge mean? It's an old example. It's an old story, but very often used in Vedanta. It's a very popular story in Vedanta. Okay, yeah. You know the Chembur market here before the lockdown? There was a beggar. All the shopkeepers, everyone, all the vegetable vendors all knew him. Everyone knew him. The vada pav wala, this, that. And he would go begging for alms. And people would give him a coin here, coin there. Okay. We'll buy a vada pav, buy a cutting chai, go to the Sai Baba Mandir and see whether anybody is distributing some food. This is how he used to live. For 30 years he has lived like that. And secretly, every month he would buy a lottery ticket. Because this is what other means I have. I don't have any skills to earn some money, etc. Only begging is my skill. That I have. Mera dhanda to begging hi. Okay. In Bombay, begging is a profession. Okay. In fact, I have seen a school for beggars also. Amatunga under the bridge, east-west crossing bridge, there was this guy running a school teaching the urchins how to beg effectively. So begging was a profession. So this guy also begging for a profession. But every month he would buy a lottery ticket. And as luck would have it, last Diwali bumper offer, 11 crores he gained. 11 crores. Wow. So he moved out of the slum, bought a new house for a couple of crores. New car, new dress, all golden ring, golden watch, new wife. Sorry, same wife, but now middle class morality. He's married now. Okay. All that. And one day he decided, let me visit the market and show the old people, used to call me Sala, beggar, this, that, etc. Give me galis. Let me show them. Hum to sed ban gaya. So got into his new car. Took it to those lanes into the marketplace. Came out. Strutting about in his new dress with his golden watch and all rings on his fingers, etc. The typical signs of neo rich. To show them. Because now he's feeling, I have arrived. But unless others acknowledge, how do you say you have arrived? Therefore, okay. And that day happened to be some festival day. Therefore, near the Sai Baba Mandir, they were distributing some laddus. Laddu? Free food distribution? 30 years ka experience hai. His hand went over everyone's heads and he got that laddu. And that person put the laddu also. Then he's seeing all the golden rings, etc. And he looks at them surprised. What are you begging here? It's all meant for poor. Quietly, sheepishly, he withdraws. Tell me, what happened to this knowledge he was a rich man? He is a rich man now, no? He is worth a few crores. Reasonably rich. In Bombay, few crores won't mean much, but okay. Reasonably rich. Well off at least. Tell me, when his hand reached out to get that free dole of food, what happened to the knowledge I am a rich man? Habit, yes. That knowledge was temporarily forgotten and old conditionings took over. Old conditioning, more than instincts, is conditioning. Old conditionings took over. Rooted in knowledge means these conditionings will not take over. You have deconditioned yourself from all of that. The knowledge is so crystal clear in your mind that you will not go back to thinking, I am only the body, I am only the mind, I am nothing more than that. I have gone through a lot of pain in my life. I am still carrying some hurt, etc. My parents were like that. My in-laws were like that. My partner in life is like this. No, you are Ananda. And you will never miss sight of the fact you are Ananda. That is called being rooted in the knowledge. How to get there, Gita will show you, don't worry. Don't worry. Right now, it's an insight only. Right now, for the knowledge, is an insight. The Gita will show you how to get into that. Why do you think he is speaking 700 verses? It's only, we have gained insights in the second chapter. Now, the rootedness, etc., will come in time. And the Gita will show you how to get there. Okay? Eva Brahmanam Ichchati. Okay? Then he says, Om Tat Sat. Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So, thus, in the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Upanishad, so which is like an Upanishad by itself, Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastra, which has got both Brahma Vidya and Yoga Shastra. Brahma Vidya is the pure knowledge of the truth. Yoga Shastra is whatever that is taught to handle the mind. Mastery of the mind is Yoga. Yoga Shastra, which is in the form of Krishna Arjuna Samvade, a dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna. Sankhya Yogo Nama. The chapter called Sankhya Yoga. Samyak Khyati iti Sankhya. Clear cut understanding, clear knowledge is called Sankhya. And the second chapter predominantly was dealing with knowledge. Therefore, Sankhya Yoga Nama Dvitiya Adhyaya. The second chapter comes to an end. A few things I didn't tell you all when the first chapter I was doing because I didn't want to lose the connection. Okay. For a dialogue, there are a few terms used in Sanskrit. Here the term used is Samvada. Samvada is always between a guru and a sishya. Between a guru, one who can communicate something, and a sishya who wants that knowledge. Therefore, guru-sishya dialogue is called a Samvada. When the dialogue, it is between two equals, it is called Vada. It's a Vada. Two people may be discussing something, may be arguing about something, but both are equals here. Therefore, it's a Vada. Two students are discussing a topic. They are friends, they attended the Gita class, they are going home and discussing it. It becomes a Vada, a discussion. Or it may be a debate between two scholars. Vada. Then there is something called Vidanda. My aim is to oppose everything that you are saying. I have to contradict you. That is called Vidanda. And sometimes the discussions looks like fish market. With my apologies to the fisherwoman. Okay. What you see on TV nowadays, that is called Jalpa. Okay. It is the lowest form of dialogue. It's Jalpa. It's always just a cacophony of noise. There is more heat than light. Okay, so a few terms are used. Here it's saying it is in the form of a samvada between the Guru and the Sishya. Between Krishna the Guru and Arjuna the Sishya, it is a samvada. Okay. The term yoga coming after every chapter, you will see the word yoga. In the sense, first chapter is called Arjuna Vishada Yoga. Second is Sankhya Yoga. Third is Karma Yoga. Like that will go on. Here, yoga means predominant topic. Yoga has got many meanings. Don't think standing on your head is yoga. The only meaning of the word yoga. Or holding your nose and doing some pranayamas is yoga. No. Yoga has got many meanings. In this context, it means a topic or a chapter. Okay. The topic under discussion is called Sankhya Yoga. It is not, or Arjuna Vishada Yoga, the yoga of Arjuna's grief. And some idiots talk like that. Before coming to spirituality, I must have a lot of grief. What is that? I didn't have any grief, I went to spirituality. Okay? I went to Vedanta without much grief. I dealt with my grief. I said, been there, done that. My grief is my job, I'll handle it. My existential sorrow, I want to go and deal with it. My existential issues. What am I searching for in life? I want to go to Vedanta. Not grief because you lost something. That's not true. In fact, that is not really Vairagya. In fact, the tradition talks about few people who will not normally succeed in this pursuit. One is a Smashana Vairagya. Because you lost someone near and dear, you got a great Vairagya towards life, you want to become a sadhu. They won't last out. Prasuti Vairagya. In the labor room, when you're delivering a child, you will say, never again, I don't want to have a child anymore. But once you start enjoying the child, all that is forgotten. Prasuti Vairagya. Then Nashta Rajyam, the king lost his kingdom, now want to become a sadhu. Nashta Bharya, his wife walked out on him. Therefore, with that hurt and the pain, I want to become sadhu. Devdas type. These type will not work. It will not work. Okay? These are right types that will not work. Therefore, it's not out of grief you come to Vedanta. People ask also, why? What happened in your life that you have to go to Vedanta? What happened? Nothing. I want more out of life than what life can offer me. That's why I'm going to Vedanta. I'm going to Vedanta for the positivity in my life. That I want more. This dil mange more, yeah, that way. Therefore, that is it. Now with this we come to the end of the second chapter. Okay. So really speaking, there are a lot of scholars who think, who hold that the dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna was only up to the end of the second chapter. Because look at it. What is the problem? Arjuna Vishada. From a topical problem of battle, how to kill my kith and kin, the question whether dharma will survive, to what is moksha. The evolution of the problem was shown very clearly. And the solution in terms of knowledge was also given. From the 11th verse onwards, 12th verse onwards, all the teaching was solving the problem. Who am I? What are you? What is moksha? Elaborately done. What is the reality of the world? Na bhavo vidyate sataha, na sato vidyate bhavaha. All that elaborately done. Then, how do I live in the interim period? Because knowledge will take some time for me. In the interim period, how do I live? A lifestyle of Karma Yoga also given. Especially for Arjuna, because he has a battle awaits him. Yeah. After the teaching is, after the class is over, he is not going for a cup of coffee with a friend or going for dinner. Battle awaits, okay? Yeah, battle awaits. You have to kill or be killed. That is the situation. Therefore, a lifestyle of Karma Yoga also present. And the goal in terms of what is it that you can be a wise person, that also painted. This is where you can be. Striding through that battle. Ananda. Striding through Ghora karma of a battle. As Ananda, you are striding through that. This people are getting slaughtered. You are getting injured. Every hero in the Mahabharata has been injured sometime or the other, including Arjuna. At the end of the day, he would pick up arrows from his body. Yeah. Yeah, and he has fought. He has stood and fought with those arrows in him. And at the end of the day, they have been removed, and his wounds have been bandaged, and next day, ready to ride again. This is what the heroes of the Mahabharata were. This is what a real soldier is also, from what I have seen of them, where it has been an honor for me to know them. Okay. Striding through that. Anando. So that goal has been painted. What is left? Gita is complete. In fact, the second chapter is the whole teaching of the Gita. And every topic that has been dealt with the second chapter, and some only indicated, is elaborated over the next 16 chapters. Very beautifully elaborated. Therefore, there is a certain repetition in it, but that is necessary for understanding. Therefore, there is, on the whole canvas of the Gita, it's elaborated. People say that was what? Vyasa who did it, not Krishna. Why? Because Krishna's teaching was over for Arjuna. Second chapter, he must have said at the end of the second chapter, Nashto moha smrutarla. Come on. My delusion is gone. I'm ready to roll. Chalo. The Gandhi Vam Samsrute Hastat slips away from it. It leaps back into my hand. I'm ready. Let's go. In fact, there is a dhyana sloka like that says that. Okay. Sarvo Upanishado Gavaha. The whole Upanishad are like a cow, equal to a cow. Dogdaha, the milkman, Krishna. Now, for the milk to start flowing, the cow requires a calf in front of it. Partho Vatsaha. Partha, Arjuna, the son of Prithvi, is the Vatsaha, the calf. Because the calf brings a little bit milk is enough. Then who is the one who is enjoying the milk? Sudhihi Bhuktaha, Sushtudihi, all the seekers. They are the bhuktas of the milk. For Arjuna, that little milk in the beginning was enough. He walked away free. All of us, because he has a prepared mind. All of us require more of it. So, the many scholars think that it was Vyasa who elaborated it into 18 full chapters. Now, whether Krishna has talked about the 18 chapters or Vyasa talked about the 18 chapters, it doesn't make a difference. Both were equally great teachers. Krishna was Ishvara himself, true. But as a teacher, Vyasa alone is equally good as a teacher. Then somebody asked a question. Is study of Gita enough for moksha? Yes. By study of this thing. Second chapter should be enough. So at the end of it, look back and see. Are you rooted in this knowledge? Nah. Crystal clear. Nothing in life will throw me out. I will never deviate from the knowledge. Great. I'll be happy. My job is done. One problem solved. Okay. Really, I'll be the happiest person. Why? Second chapter, I had a student who was so good that as a lay student, second chapter he is rooted in this knowledge. Wow. Great to have a student. I will be happiest. If you are not, then study the whole Gita. If at the end of the Gita you find not enough, I still require some more, then some Upanishad you study. Then you can study the Brahma Sutras also. Okay. Yeah. So where does the study stop? The study stops when you feel rooted in this knowledge. Up to you to decide how much you want. Some people decide, I just want a general knowledge. That's fine. If you want general knowledge, that's fine. Like all the 50, 60 students who are registered do not attend the online class. I hope they are catching up with the videos. That's why I'm taking the effort to record the whole thing and put it up. Yeah. I put in a lot of effort for all that. That is it. So, again another interesting story. There was a time years ago when I was teaching this lady's children. In fact, this lady was a great devotee of Pujya Swamiji, and her children, her two kids and their friends were all going abroad to study. So suddenly they realized they had been brought up in a very westernized society. They had gone to cathedral school and they're staying in South Bombay and very westernized. They did not have any clue on Indian culture. Therefore they asked me, will you come and take a few sessions on Indian culture? I said, Indian culture is very, very broad, but I'll give you some idea about it, so that when you go abroad and they ask you, what is the Gita? You'll be able to say, what is the Ramayana? You will not be looking, what Ramayana here, what is that? Yeah. So I gave them a few general knowledge lectures, big picture. So then they all went abroad. Then when they came back for a 3-month break, summer break, they were all undergrad students. They said, Swamiji, we have 3 months. Can you give us at least an overview of the Gita in 3 months? I said, good. Youngsters seems to be interested. I'll do that. So I went. So their grandmother was Mrs. Mulgaonkar. Mulgaonkar was one of the CEOs of Tata's in those days, long back. So this lady, the grandmother, thought, what are these kids at this age going to some Swami and listening to things? Let me see what he is teaching. So for the sake of some of the older people, I said I will teach the second chapter. So once a week, I would drop into their place and we'll have a small class. So this elderly lady asked me, because we used to have a class, then at the end of the class, the lady would insist that I have a cup of coffee before we go, which I was very happy to have, and chit-chat with all the youngsters for another half an hour, and then I would come back. So the lady asked me, Mrs. Mulgaonkar, the elderly lady asked me, Swamiji, what is the minimum that is necessary to study the Gita for moksha? I said, minimum, second chapter should be fine. She seemed very happy. And the day I finished the second chapter, I had a cup of coffee with her, and I came home. Within a couple of minutes of me reaching home, I get a phone call from her daughter saying, my mother is no more. She entered the room, she entered her house, which was just next building, entered the building, said, now I have got it in life, and she fell down dead. So after that, whenever I say, what is the minimum requirement of studies, I always tell this story. Why? I don't want any of you dropping down dead, okay? I'm serious about it. Yeah. If you gain moksha, good. Live for some more time, inspire other people to study it. I'm not joking. I'm serious about it, okay? Yeah. I'm very serious about it. Therefore, wait, study, live as a Jivan Mukta for some time. She was in her 80s, she could afford to go. All of you are not. So better stay back, okay? Yeah. All of you better stay back. So, that is the question. Now, I want you all to do something. Now that the second chapter is over, and next class, we will start the third chapter. I want you all, for your own sake, okay, this is not a test or something like that, not a test or something like that, just for your own sake, write about these three topics which will show you how clear you have understood and what you need to focus on in the remaining 16 chapters. What was Arjuna's problem? The evolution of the problem. The first chapter and the first 10 verses of the second chapter will give you the evolution of Arjuna's problem. Go over and see that very clearly and write down a few points of how it started with a personal issue, how it became a social issue, how it became a question of dharma, and finally a question of moksha. Trace it backwards. Trace the whole thing, that evolution. That will give you clarity in terms of how it should happen in your life. Second, the solution in terms of knowledge. Knowledge about myself, knowledge about the world, the reality of the world. The reality about myself, the reality of the world. How those verses. Trace it back. Make a few points on that. Third, the lifestyle of Karma Yoga that Krishna talks about. Ishwararpanam, Prasada Buddhi, etc. Make a few points on that. Make a few points on what a wise person is. If you make a few points on these, you will find that there is a certain clarity coming on to that knowledge of yours. What we have studied, there will be an added clarity. If at some point you feel certain things are not very clear, all the videos are put up with the verse numbers. So that you know which video you have to go and check it out. It will help. When I studied, we didn't have all these videos and audios and things like that, okay? We had to rely on what was here and what the notes we took. But that made us good students anyway, that apart. Here it is more easier, more comfortable. Okay. Therefore, look at it in this manner. If you look at it in this manner, you will find that your knowledge is far clearer. Whether you have been coming regularly for a class physically with me, or you have always been an online student because you are out of Bombay, whatever you have been, doesn't matter. Anyway, now we are all online. Hopefully, in a couple of weeks we should be able to meet live. Therefore, thus keep this thing, do this 3-4 topics: problem, evolution of the problem, the solution, the lifestyle, the goal. Look at that big picture. Make a few points on this. Then the whole first 2 chapters will remain with you. You will get more and more rooted in this knowledge. Someone was asking, how do you get, what is rootedness in this knowledge and how do you get there? This is a process of getting there, of being rooted. Do this and you will find that the studies gain a greater edge. You don't have to submit it to me yet. I am not yet taking a test and things like that. That I may do sometime later, not now. Okay. Any questions or clarifications? Or is it all clear?
Swamiji, can you repeat the second question?
The solution to the problem in terms of knowledge. First the problem, second the solution, third the lifestyle, fourth the goal, the picture of a wise person. 4 broad topics. And that knowledge will mean knowledge of myself as pure consciousness, knowledge of existence consciousness as a basis for the whole creation. Both. And for Karma Yoga, of course, the understanding of Ishvara has to come in. So that will also come in into the lifestyle, Karma Yoga. Clear about this? If you jot down a few points, I guarantee you, your understanding will be much finer. And even if you don't have questions now, when you come next time, probably you'll have a few questions to ask.
Thanks, Swamiji.
Someone has written, okay, problem, knowledge, solution. No, knowledge is the solution. Okay, knowledge itself is the solution. The problem is one of finitude, samsara. The solution is knowledge. And the knowledge has two parts, knowledge of myself and knowledge of the reality of the world. How real is that? Both of them come under knowledge. Then the lifestyle to gain that knowledge, the lifestyle of Karma Yoga, which will include the understanding of Ishvara and the goal painted as who's a wise person, what can you be? Now, if you are going to refer to a translation, all translations have their limitation. One of the best thing is this book by my teacher, Puja Swami Dayananda Saraswati. Okay, simple verse and its translation. You can refer to Gita Press, Gorakhpur, but that's in Hindi, but that's not bad. Ramakrishna Mission, Vireshwarananda's simple verse and translation, that's also not bad at all. So, like that, there are a few books which is quite okay. Yeah, quite okay. But every translation has a limitation because they have been doing the translation long back. So the language sometimes is a bit archaic. Yeah. So there is where the whole thing is. And I would prefer, until you gain some clarity of knowledge, not to refer to other books because there will be confusions. I have read about 200 books on the Gita in English, and maybe one or two are really worth recommending. But for the beginner, even that can be confusing. Therefore, refer to my videos. On my website, vedicwisdom.in, there is a blog on the Gita, which is a very simple blog meant for beginners. That also will give you some insights. Oh, what is Ishvara? Okay, have a look at that. What's Karma Yoga? Have a look at that. It's a blog. Therefore, you will find on every chapter 2-3 articles on it. It's just a blog that I did some long time back. Yeah. So that will give you some clarity again. As backup reading, that will give you something. But main thing, what I have taught you, that remains with you. So any other questions, or it's all clear? Looks like it's all clear, and if it is, it's a good place to stop. See you all next week. Om Tat Sat.